Punya that he should be speaking to us. So is it possible, Swamiji, just a few words from you before we hand it over to Dr. Punya?
Yeah. So All India Institute of Medical Science, Rishikesh, just 25 kilometers away from my place, Ramakrishna Mission Haridwar. Ramakrishna Mission Haridwar, those of you don't know, is a 200-bedded hospital. And team of doctors from AIIMS Rishikesh do visit our charitable hospital once in a month, every month first Saturday. So during their visit, they come spend their time with our doctors, nurses, patients, and take some classes, do counseling with the patients, mainly the oncosurgical cases. So Dr. Punya has been associated with us with this work. The team led by Dr. S.P. Agarwal. So he is one of the team member of this great team, the oncosurgeons from AIIMS Rishikesh. So Dr. Punya is a very nice gentleman. I am not a surgeon, I don't know much about surgeries and cancer, but I can say he's a true gentleman, and we have a lot of love and affection for each of us, and also at the institution level. AIIMS Rishikesh also focus on serving the poor and needy, at the same time Ramakrishna Mission Haridwar. So we are working together. So I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Dharmaram Punya, who is an oncosurgeon, and he will be addressing our CERIMED members. Warm welcome to Dr. Punya. Now I hand over the mic to Dr. Punya. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you so much for kind introduction. And it's really great pleasure to help you. And we learned a lot of things from you. You are serving the humanity. Shall I start, sir, my presentation?
Please, Dr. Punya. Thank you.
Okay. So I will talk about decomposition of the cancer, a perspective of an oncologist. So we have variety of specialists here, and it's really great. We can talk about the basics of cancer. So my presentation will largely talk about the basics of cancer. Thank you so much, organizer, for inviting me to address such a unique group of people. Dating from Rishikesh, I am working in this area for last 2 years, and once I have joined here, I explore area as a whole. I love the people who live here. They are really very naive people, very great people, and it's really a great pleasure working here. So my presentation will be having 5-6 small sections so that one doesn't feel bored. I'll talk about the cancer as a problem. Then I'll talk about a little bit about the cancer biology. Then I'll talk about what is needed from us as a healthcare provider. There are different cancer-related myths also. Yoga and cancer, does we have something? And then take-home message. Regarding cancer as a problem, as we know, India is a growing economy, and we are moving toward a developed nation. Moving toward the elites of the developed nation, and some good thing comes with some bad things also. So we have non-communicable disease increasing significantly. Nearly 60% of total death are in these days caused by non-communicable disease. We forgot the era where malaria and dengue has been very important cause of death. Now we have non-communicable disease. These are the major chunk of the death, and among them, cancer is third leading cause of death. Nearly 7% of total death are caused because of the cancer. That is after heart and lung disease. So we can understand that's a substantial problem. The problem on other aspect is that our healthcare system is not mature enough to take care of such a huge burden. Apart from that, we have problems associated with myth, stigma, fear, cost, access, and facility to the healthcare. That's another problem which compound it and leads to a problem of poor health in our patients. And that is very well evident with data also. Cancer mortality in India has doubled for last 20, 30 years. And predictions are also very poor. Like what WHO predicts, they say that cancer will increase by its double number. In number, it will be doubled in the next 20 years or so. If we talk about lifetime risk of developing cancer in a normal human being, if he is to live for 75 years, in man and woman, it will be nearly 9%. Similarly, 6 to 7% chance of that person being died of the cancer. That's a huge number. Nearly 25% of cancer deaths are because of 3 most common cancer. These are oral cancer, breast cancer, and lung cancer. Regarding gender, we have we have a list of common cancers also, and these 5 top common cancer leads to nearly 50% of cancer incidence in India. So it's really important to know these cancers. Lip and oral cavity cancer, followed by lung cancer, followed by stomach, colorectal, and esophageal cancer. As you can see, number 3, 4, and 5, these are related. These are intestinal cancer, largely linked with our diet. In women, we have breast cancer, most common cancer. Earlier, it was cervical cancer, so we have taken care of that very well. So breast cancer is the most common cancer, followed by lip and oral cavity. Cervical cancer is now 3rd most common cancer, followed by lung cancer, and then we have the gastric cancer. So these are the common cancers in India. These are Globocon data, and it is highlighting the fact that India is a huge country. Followed by this figure, and followed by what we have, we nearly see 12 lakh new cases per year in India, and more than 60% of them, that is 7.8 lakh cases, 7.8 lakh people died of that particular cancer. So that's a substantial number. We have 60% death rate because of the 60% of patients who are diagnosed with cancer die of that thing. And why it is so? Because majority of our cancer present in advanced stage, not in early stage. This is a recent publication came from PBCR, and which consistently say if we see different cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer, head and neck cancer, stomach cancer, lung cancer, male and woman, what we can consistently see that majority of patients present in advanced or locally advanced disease or distant metastatic disease, not in localized disease. That's the biggest problem. Localized disease seen in only like 10 to 30% at the max. And these are the patients in whom we can achieve the cure. That's the problem we have. In Western population, what we have nearly like 30 to 40% death rate, and here in India we have nearly 60% death rate. So why it is so? Little bit about cancer biology, why cancer happens. This is an important chart. It will be able to explain almost everything, what basics about the cancer, why cancer actually happens. So in center we have, this is the genetic level, what happens in the body when cancer happens. This is the center part, the genome part. So genome, if there is alteration in the genome, we will have an initiation of cancer. Genome is being affected by 3 important factors. One is genetic susceptibility. If somebody is having their genes susceptible to develop cancer, they are at high risk of developing cancer, followed by environmental factor and then lifestyle factor. Environmental factor and lifestyle factor are interlinked with each other. At the same time, we have genetic susceptibility also. So there is an interaction of genetic susceptibility as well as environmental and lifestyle factor, which leads to initiation of cancer. So say somebody is having genetic problem, some family history or some genes are altered, he is at high risk of developing cancer. But if he is being exposed to certain environmental exposure or lifestyle, I will talk about those things also a little bit later in my presentation. But if somebody is suffering from environmental issues or lifestyle issues, then his chance of developing cancer will be higher as compared to somebody who is not being affected despite having genetic susceptibility. On contrary, if somebody is not having genetic susceptibility to develop cancer, but having high environmental load or poor lifestyle, which is associated with cancer, even those patients have the chance of developing cancer. So it's like they have an interaction, but they are like synergistic to each other also. So once because of genetic susceptibility or environmental factor or lifestyle, somebody's genome is being affected significantly, that can lead to initiation of cancer. But we have a defense mechanism in the body also. So if our genes got affected because of genetic susceptibility or environmental factor, lifestyle, we have a repair mechanism. So that repair mechanism will take care of that particular thing and cancer will not happen. If that repair mechanism also fails down, then somebody will have a cancer. Regarding cellular level, so that was about the genetic level. Now we have cellular level. What happens to the cells? Normally, different cells have a different function. And because of different functions, cells go into wear and tear. They might damage significantly. So there is a mechanism of cell division. So these cell division will take care and replenish these cells. And damaged cells will go into cell suicide. Scientifically, we call them apoptosis. So that is the normal homeostasis. So as I told you, every human cell can develop cancer. So if we have a problem in these cells, so if we have genetic changes in those particular cells, those cells will not under the control of that particular individual, and they go into uncontrolled cell division. and form a mass. That mass is called as tumor or cancer. So let me put this into clinical perspective, what happens in clinically. So initially these are genetic changes there. Then these genetic changes lead to cellular changes. These cellular changes initially would be called as hyperplasia, when number of cells increase. Then we have dysplasia also. Then we have in situ cancer, and then we have invasive cancer. So invasive cancer is the term what we use for cancer. And when we will call it invasive cancer, when this particular cancer crosses the basement membrane, there is a protective layer in the human body called as basement membrane. So when this invasive mass crosses the basement membrane and reaches the deeper tissue, this is called as the invasive cancer. From here onward, mostly patient develop the symptom. So this particular phase, patient will not have symptom. But on right side, I am showing the natural history of the disease, where this all is called as stage 0 disease. Now, when patient goes beyond that and develop that particular mass which goes into invasive cancer, then invasive cancer will keep on growing if it doesn't intervene. That is what called as the natural history of the disease. So stage 1 disease is localized disease. When that particular mass increases in size or goes deep into the tissue, it will call a stage 2 disease. Further increase in size or growing deeper into the tissue will call a stage 3 disease. And ultimately, when this mass gain access to the blood vessels, and from here it goes into different organs, that is called a stage 4 disease or metastatic disease. Right? So I told you about nearly genetic susceptibility as well as environmental lifestyle factors. So genetic causes lead to cancer in nearly 5 to 10% of cases. Remaining 90% of cases, cancer is caused by environmental factor. That's important. And what environmental factor that we should know. So largely we have diet-related factors, tobacco-related factors, infections, obesity, alcohol, and certain other factors which we don't know. So these are different factors lead to cancer. And nearly 5 to 10% of the cases, cancer is because of only genetic causes. So regarding alcohol, alcohol leads to a variety of cancer. Liver cancer is one of the commonest cancer caused by alcohol. Then we have breast cancer. Woman breast cancer is largely because of the alcohol. That is because of alcohol. We have some GI cancer, esophageal cancer, laryngeal cancer, and oropharyngeal cancer. These are because of the alcoholic. Cancer in smoke also causes a lot of cancer. Nearly 14 types of cancer are caused by smoking. So I don't want to go deep into exact details of these cancers, but there's a long list, caused by smoking. And smoking also affects one more. It does do one more thing to the body. What does it affect? It affects almost every organ of the body. It affects the lungs. It affects the kidney. It affects the liver. It affects the heart. It affects the brain, and it affects the blood vessel. So ability of that particular individual with the cancer to take the treatment will also goes down. He will be suffering from some heart disease. It will be difficult to give the treatment. So that way it also compounds the problem. Regarding diet, we have certain diet-related cancer also. We have some head and neck cancer related to diet. We have lung cancer, colorectal cancer. There is a long battery of list, and lot of cancer caused by diet. Lot of cancer are diet related with obesity also. One of the commonest is ovarian cancer, kidney cancer, endometrial cancer. These are common cancer associated with obesity. Then we have infection associated. This is also important thing because infection can be prevented. Hepatitis B associated infections can lead to hepatocellular carcinoma. Once patient develops hepatitis B, nearly after 20 to 30 years, he has chance of developing hepatocellular carcinoma. And we have some other infection, hepatitis, human papillomavirus infection that can lead to anogenital infection. Cervical cancer is one of the common example with HPV vaccine, HPV infection, and we have certain vaccine for that also. Some herpes infection can lead to some lymphomas and sarcomas, that is there. And certain environmental factors like, somebody is working in different industries which produce some chemicals, they can lead to bladder cancer. Radioactive nuclei can lead to gastric cancer, bladder cancer because of nitrate consumptions. So such things also there. So there's a long battery of list. One should really be aware that environment has a huge implication in cancer genesis. So now we know the problem, what is expected from us, that is also very important. So this slide we have already seen. I'll try to put different perspective on this slide this time. So I already told you this particular phase on the left side, patient doesn't have any symptom. So when we try to find out the individual in this particular phase, that is called as screening. So if we are able to find out somebody is having these changes, it will be good. We will prevent that particular thing, and that should be the ultimate aim That should be the ultimate aim. But the problem is we really don't know who will gonna develop these changes. That is the problem. So how to go about it? So we cannot really intervene whole population to advise certain tests and ask them to come. What we can do, if somebody is practicing high risk behavior, or somebody is having genetic susceptibility, or somebody is having certain environmental exposure, such individual can be subjected to screening test so that we can prevent cancer formation. Then we have, when disease goes beyond this preclinical phase and become an invasive infection, invasive disease, now patient started to develop the symptom. Here, every attempt should be made to make the society aware that what are different symptoms of cancer so that one can diagnose the cancer early. That is called as early diagnosis. Later on, when we have advanced disease, we normally talk only about the treatment and cure. So up to stage 3, we normally talk about the cure. We tend to think about the cure. Stage 1 disease, more chance of cure. Stage 2 and 3 disease, definitely lesser chance of cure. Stage 4 disease, very less chance of cure. Where we talk, stage 4 disease, normally we talk about palliative care or quality of life things. So the environmental causes I already enumerated. So these causes should be reduced. This is American Cancer Society data. They say that nearly 40% of cancer in America can be prevented with small things. If you can quit smoke, that can lead to the reduction number of cancer. Obesity, important thing that can reduce with dietary modification, daily physical activity, alcohol, UV radiation, physical inactivity, and poor diet. These are important aspects that has to be there in the lifestyle, so that somebody follow a healthy lifestyle away from the cancer. So that is one thing. So then so if we do these things, we will be taking care of this particular area, the screening phase and preclinical disease. Next thing is early diagnosis. Why it is important to have early diagnosis? So we have data for that. If somebody is diagnosed in early age, like stage 1 or stage 2 disease, then their chance of getting cured would be nearly 81%. If somebody is diagnosed late stage disease, stage 3 or stage 4 disease, the chance of cure would only be 26%. And that is across different diseases also, like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and certain other cancers. That is same. Nearly 80 to 90% chance of cure is there with early stage disease. Advanced disease, we have 5 to 10% chance of cure. That is very important. Now talking about the symptom. So how you reach to early diagnosis, we need to find out the symptoms. As you know, every human cell can develop cancer. It's really difficult to understand what are different symptoms. We cannot really remember all those things and telling everybody, whoever comes to you, it's not that possible. So the basic principle why symptoms happen, that is very important. Basically, if disease is on the surface, mostly it will produce swelling or ulcer, which will not gonna heal with routine treatment. If there is mass inside, that will be febrile mass, which will bleed. Somebody might cough. If that is affecting gut, it will lead to constipation. He will not able to eat well. He will not able to fresh well. He will develop anorexia, weight loss. Anorexia, weight loss, another important symptom. So if it is there, that one should always think of cancer. Then somebody complain of unwellness or something is not right with him for short duration, for like 2 to 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. That is also a significant symptom. An important thing which is a misnomer, which is actually a problem with society, that they wait for the symptom to come, a symptom of pain to come. That's the biggest problem. Pain is the symptom of advanced disease. That should be very much clear. It's a swelling and ulcer are the early symptoms, and pain is the late symptom. So probably this is the bottom line one should remember. I don't think so anybody need to remember those much information. The ultimate bottom line is that any unexplained problem persisting more than 2 to 3 weeks with appropriate treatment. Somebody have taken the necessary treatment and that is not getting resolved in 2 to 3 weeks. Definitely they should consult an oncologist, considering the high prevalence of this thing. And if somebody is having high risk behavior, definitely he should go and visit the oncologist. That should be the basic, I think, the bottom line. Regarding the next thing is, it's a continuum of care. We cannot really leave behind the patient who diagnosed with the disease. So that way, there are 3 basic principles of cancer care. One is awareness and accessing the care. We should provide the access to the care and awareness. We should have a clinical evaluation, diagnosing and staging facility, and we should provide them the access to the treatment. These are 3 basic pillars of cancer care according to WHO. The problem in our society that we have certain barriers. So as a healthcare provider, we should be taking care to address these healthcare barriers also. We have poor health literacy. Somebody is suffering from some problem. He will be having swelling for a long time. Say breast patient, breast cancer patient. They have a swelling for years together, months together, and they will be coming with the complaint that I developed the pain for the last 2 months. So that's really sad, because the message should be very clear in the society that swelling is a more important symptom as compared to pain. We have cancer stigma. People don't want to reveal that they are suffering from cancer. Again, primary care area, we have limited access. We don't have adequate health power to taken care of those people at that particular level only. Then we have somebody somehow reach there to the facility. Then we have diagnostic delay also, healthcare facility in the tertiary area also overburdened. Then we have diagnostic testing not available at each center. We have to send some tests to different centers, and that takes time. Then we have poor coordination. Patient comes here, get the treatment also, but incomplete treatment because of the care coordination. Patient comes in and visit a local physician or local doctor or local nurse, and they suggest, nah, cancer is done, surgery is done, then everything is done. So that kind of message there in society, that also affect the outlook of the cancer outcome. Financial problem, geographical problem, logistic problem, socio-cultural barriers, these all are there. So probably the holistic approach will gonna take care of that thing. So this way, so as a cancer person or an oncologist, actually these are the main domain where we really work: screening, prevention, survivorship, palliative care, treatment, and early diagnosis. These are the main domains. But if we want to improve the society, we have to go beyond. We have to take care of the healthcare system and then go down to the society. That is the basic way really to reach it. And this is a great initiative from SARIMAD, where they are trying to integrate different health system in the cancer care: homeopathy, allopathy, Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha. That is really a great initiative, and that should actually help. The next thing is that every lock has a different key, and if you put a proper key, lock will gonna open. If you put a wrong key, lock will not gonna open. That message has to be very much clear. I have a photograph also. I don't want to talk about that thing. But initially, like surgery has been age-old concept for the cancer treatment. For nearly last 100 years, we have radiotherapy that has been proven useful for cancer treatment as an integrative therapy with surgery to take care of cancer. Then we have chemotherapy also coming up for last 30 to 40 years. Now we have immunotherapy also and targeted therapy also coming up for cancer treatment for last 10, 12 years. So lot is happening in cancer care. And we surgeons have adopted everybody. Radiation people initially, probably there would be initial hitch that you are not right people to treat cancer. It is not like that. Everybody is right people to treat cancer, provided they have substantial evidences to show it. So we have Ayush actually parallel system that is there. So probably Ayush should also come up with strong evidences so that people have a belief. Surgeons have a belief. Radiotherapy people have a belief. Chemotherapy people have a belief. Rather than eminence-based, the statements or that kind of thing should not be there. So proper problem should be identified and proper key should be utilized. Okay, so next slide. I'll talk about this thing a little later also. So ultimately, what we need authentic data. We need strong evidences to support the therapy. What we need scientific explanation behind the whatever somebody is telling. And when we largely base our decision on evidence rather than eminence, that is important. So at this particular era, it will be difficult. I'm not sure actually. If somebody feel bad, you can interrupt me also. So at this particular point, Ayush therapies has adjunct role, but primarily what evidence says, cancer can only be cured with either surgery, radiotherapy. Either not. It's like combined surgery, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy. That is the basic way. That is the basic understanding how cancer can be cured. And regarding early diagnosis and mammography screening, etc. So this is the important chart. What Western people, USA and this is chart from US and Netherlands. So cervical cancer was very common in their area. They have adopted the Pap smear testing. They have adopted the vaccination later on also, and that's how they have almost eradicated cervical cancer. That is very important. So that kind of adoption is essential for us. And unfortunately, we don't have any structured screening program. That's one sad thing, and government is looking into that. That's a really good thing. Regarding certain cancer myth, I'm sorry, this is okay. So the one thing which is always there, every clinician must have faced, I mean, even everybody must have faced, that cancer is a death sentence. Is it so? The answer is no, it is not so. We have a problem of cure. We don't achieve cure in diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, liver disease, chronic kidney disease. But we have a chance to get cure in cancer, provided patient present on early time and receive a complete treatment. So stage 1 and 2, I already show you nearly 80 to 90% chance of cure. Somebody present stage 4 disease, we hardly achieve the cure. So that is there. So cancer is curable provided it comes in an early stage. Will eating sugar make me cancer worse? That's another problem people ask. So, it is the society have a thing that the cancer cell do eat. And if we can reduce our sugar intake, cancer cell will probably die. It is not right, because if your body become weaker, you will not able to take the treatment. So it's a myth. Then is cancer contagious? Another important aspect. Cancer is not contagious. You can meet them, you can hug them, you can eat food with them, no problem with that. It is not contagious for sure. Does my attitude, positive or negative, determine my risk of recovery from cancer? That's another important thing. A lot of oncologists are also saying that positive attitude does help. Evidence doesn't really support, but yes, patient will be able to complete his treatment well if he is in positive state of mind. That is important. So evidence doesn't really support that it actually helps to cure the disease, but yes, it will give him the ability to withhold the treatment. That is important. Can surgery or tumor biopsy cause cancer to spread? That's the biggest misnomer. Patient comes to us and say that, doctor, please don't take biopsy and start the treatment. That is not at all possible. Without biopsy, one cannot know what kind of tumor you are dealing with. And cancer tumor biopsy doesn't spread tumor for sure. It's incomplete removal that can lead to sudden spread or rapid spread of the tumor. So that is not being practiced. The tumor biopsy is a procedure in which a small piece of the tumor will be taken and examined. Do my mobile phone can cause cancer? The answer is no. We don't have data at this particular point that mobile phone can cause cancer. Does we have single test to detect the cancer? The answer is no. We don't have any tumor marker or PET-CT. People come that get a PET-CT done so that we can find out whether I'm suffering from cancer or not. That this is actually a wrong thing, and this is not the right thing. PET-CT will not going to help that way. And tumor markers are specific to particular disease, so they are not a generalized tumor markers. They are related to particular disease itself. So yes, we don't have any single test to diagnose cancer. Are there herbal products that can cure cancer? Unfortunately, no. We don't have proven role of herbal product to cure the cancer. If someone in family has cancer, am I likely to get cancer too? There is high chance of developing cancer, but again, we don't have it's not clear. It's not absolute. Somebody in family having cancer and you'll get the cancer. It is not absolute sentence. If nobody in my family had cancer, does that mean I'm risk-free? Again, that is also, I already showed the basics of cancer, in which I told that genetic thing is very important, but environmental factor and lifestyle also have a lot of implications. So anybody can develop cancer despite not having any family history. Do antidepressant deodorant cause cancer? The answer is no. It doesn't lead to cancer. Does hair dye increase the risk of cancer? Again, it is not proven fact, but I personally believe hair dye should be avoided because dye-related product can lead to bladder cancer. That is well-proven cancer point. So yes, we don't have strong evidences, but dye should be avoided. You don't need to get the surgery if tumor is solid. So surgery is cornerstone of the treatment. If tumor is not being removed, actually, chance of getting cured is significantly dropping down. So surgery is the main treatment for the cancer. So that should not be ruled out whenever feasible. A lump in your breast is always breast cancer. It is also not a truth. Lump or swelling is important symptom, but all lump are not cancer. That should be very much clear. Pregnant woman can't get cancer. It is absolutely false. Pregnant woman can also get cancer. Pain is an important symptom. Pain is very important symptom, but it is a symptom of advanced disease, not a symptom of early disease. That is important. Next thing, hair will never grow back after chemotherapy. 99% of the cases hair will grow back. So during the chemotherapy or next 3 to 4 months, it will take to hair to grow back. But it is not like patient will have permanent alopecia. It is not true. Cancer will always come back. It depends upon stage of the disease. Nobody can predict who will be cured, who will not be cured. Early disease also we have a chance of getting cured nearly 80 to 90%. So rest 10 to 20% of people have a chance of getting the disease back. So We cannot really say that, but it is not absolute that always disease will gonna come back. Your attitude determines the outcome of the cancer treatment. Outcome, it will not gonna affect. It will not gonna affect, but it will increase one's ability to increase the withhold the cancer treatment. Cancer is always very painful. This I have already answered. Old people are not fit to take the cancer treatment. No, this is also incorrect. Somebody who is older but fit enough to take treatment of surgery, radiotherapy, or chemotherapy should be treated, and they can be cured also. It's not like that. Cancer treatment, okay. Cancer treatment is usually more worse than disease itself. It's partially correct sometimes. Surgery is usually comparatively easy to tolerate. Radiation and chemotherapy little difficult to tolerate. But these all are temporary things. Everything will vanish off once the treatment is over. So it's difficult to take the treatment, but it's not like that. It is poor than that. To achieve something, you have to go through something which might affect. People being treated for cancer can't participate in the usual activity. It's absolutely wrong. They can participate during treatment. Yes, there will be certain restriction, but once the treatment is over, actually, we encourage everybody to take part in different activities, and we advise everybody to go back to their work area and contribute positively to the society. That is important. Artificial sweetener, flavor, colors, food additive can leads to cancer. It is again not a well-proven fact. It should be avoided because indirectly they leads to obesity and such things. So they should be avoided, but we don't have evidence at this particular point to say they cause cancer. Now regarding yoga and cancer. So I'm last 5 minutes. Okay, yoga and cancer. So this is an important chart. Yoga is affecting the human body at 3 areas. It affects the nervous system. It affects the hypothalamo-pituitary axis, and it affects the circulatory and lymphatic system, and thereby various inflammatory markers reduce, and thereby certain symptoms of cancer itself, certain symptoms of cancer-related treatment will be helped. Sleep disturbances will be taken care. Cancer-related fatigue, another important big problem, that will be taken care. Cognitive impairment, psychological distress, and musculoskeletal symptoms. Those all are very well taken by yoga. That's why we actually promote our patient to involve into yoga sessions. And we do have evidences also, strong evidence. Cochrane Library is the strongest, is the source of systematic review and meta-analysis, which itself are the strongest evidences. And there are data which say that yoga has the ability to improve the health-related quality of life, mental health, and cancer-related symptoms in different cancers. Yoga have found very useful in different cardiovascular diseases also. So we hope it will be helping us to improve patients' ability to take the treatment, improve their quality in cancer also. That's what we are hoping for. We don't have much data for other specialties, other Unanis and other therapies. So in summary, what I say, cancer is a growing health concern. Medical science is far from perfect. A little is known actually, and we don't know multiple things. Alternative care and Ayush therapies definitely have a role. At this particular point, what evidence say that they have a role to reduce the suffering of the cancer-related treatment and cancer suffering. Yoga is one of the most. Yoga is is foreigner in them. Need of our to have an integrated approach where complementary therapies as well as the allopathic care come together and think about holistic care to the people and society. Prevention, early diagnosis, healthy lifestyle, and early diagnosis. These are the key to the success. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm sorry if I kind of offending somewhere. I'm really sorry if I sound.
No, sir, Dr. Punia, it was really nice. I think we will have some questions coming in from.
Can I begin with some questions, Anirbanji?
Please, Dr. Sharma, most welcome.
Dr. Punia, that was beautiful presentation. Thank you for coming to SteriMed, and you did such an exhaustive review. I'm amazed. There's so many new things I learned today. So very grateful, and on behalf of the SteriMed team, please accept our deepest gratitude.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I have 3 questions. If you want, I can fire them together or one by one.
One by one would be good, I think, sir.
Okay. One simple one, you beautifully illustrated the genetic predisposition, environment, and lifestyle. So almost like 3 legs, right? So I'm an acronym man. So immediately came to my mind, it's a leg, L for lifestyle, E for environment, and G for genes. So just an acronym. Would you be kind enough to tell us in a percentage terms, broadly speaking, are they 33%, or is there some different combination of predispositions?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, sir, because we really don't have any answer. I just try to give you what we have. We don't have any clear-cut answer actually how genetic predisposition actually affects, how environment affects, how lifestyle affects. But largely, this is what I have given. 5 to 10% of cancer are directly related to the genetic things. Rest of those are explained on the basis of environmental factor. And these environmental factors environment also gonna affect the genetic thing. So it's a mixed kind of thing. So individually we really cannot have a percentage. It's an interaction ultimately. And then we have a defense mechanism also, repair kind of thing. So they also try to do their stuff.
So my next two questions are actually on the repair. So you touched upon the epigenetics. That is very close to my heart through my interest in meditation, and you have looked at a lot of epigenetic studies, how meditation can actually have a very profound epigenetic effect, as well as, for example, telomere prolongation and actual gene expression modification. So how much is the contribution of epigenetic in cancer prevention vis-a-vis meditation or some other epigenetic factors?
Okay. So the thing is, as an oncologist, actually, how we see genetics, epigenetics, I'll tell you. So something which we cannot explain with very well-known genetic imbalances, we try to find out the reason in epigenetic also, like certain changes parallel to the main genome that we try to explain. As a preventive aspect, I'm not at all aware about like how yoga affect epigenetics. I'm not at all aware because I haven't read much about how yoga affect that thing. Sir.
So my third question is with regards to apoptosis, the programmed cell death or the cell death and cell repair. Could you expand on apoptosis and autophagy and the role of intermittent fasting and how that could impact cancer? Because there clearly was definite cancer prevention seen in the rats, but the human studies came conflicting. So please expand on that.
Yes, sir. So this is a big misnomer. This is actually a big myth there actually, because that study have shown there is some benefit that if we can reduce the amount of glucose to those cells, they actually tend to die. But that is not the case in human. That is there. And apoptosis is a huge normal human physiological thing. If cell damaged to such an extent that it cannot work properly, we have a defense system where apoptosis comes in. In cancer, we don't have that kind of cancer. They have a tendency to evade that particular mechanism that leads to cancer. That's the problem.
So would you say there is or there is no role for intermittent fasting in cancer prevention?
We don't have evidence really. So studies are ongoing, but we really don't have any concrete evidence that does it help or not.
Thank you very much.
At the point, it's like it should be avoided at least.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You explained everything so beautifully. Anirban, over to you.
Yes, sir. So, do we have any further questions, Dr. Subrata? You do have.
I have rather a comment. Since in the StudyMed we have a group of other doctors from other disciplines, especially Dr. Harish Babu from our Asha Bangalore. So I request because he's doing a lot of cancer treatment using Ayurvedic technique. So his experience or his further understanding how yoga helps. So Dr. Harish Babu, you have any comments or any other experience of Ayurvedic treatment so far, even though it's very difficult to publish the result because of the protocols or the procedure needed, but useful comments from Dr. Harish Babu. Dr. Harish Babu, please.
Sir, namaste everyone. Myself Dr. Harish Babu. So I am from Ayurveda. I am looking after this oncology department since 5 years. What sir is telling is actually, I almost agree. We cannot tell there is cure from any system. It depends completely on the stage. And even the treatment plan depends on what stage the patient is coming. So in SVASA, the most of the thing that we are following or what we are practicing is an integrated palliative care. That is particularly in the end stage or in the fourth stage where they have done all the chemo and radiation, and in spite of that, there is cancer growth is there. In such conditions, we are doing the palliative care in order to minimize the complaints and improve the quality of life. So I agree with the sir. Telling there is a cure is completely, it depends on the type of the cancer and the stage to which they come. Even we have seen early stages and we have referred them for surgery. And even we have seen early stages and we have even denied for chemo and radiation, and we have asked them to correct their lifestyle, and they have improved well also. So as the sir said, we need a stronger evidence to claim that. But at present, we are very good in palliative care management at the end stage, sir.
Okay, thank
Absolutely.
you.
Nice comment, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
The question, Oliver.
Yeah, we have Dr. Alifia. You can unmute and perhaps you can ask this question if I have to.
Yes, sir. I would like to ask a question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Punia. It was a very informative session. Well, as we know that for cancer, the first line of treatment is chemotherapy and radiation, but it leads to a lot of side effects like nausea, loss of appetite, and it deteriorates the quality of life of a cancer patient. To know your views on how to deal with these side effects of the main line of treatment.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for asking the question. Yes. No, there are three treatment actually. One is surgery, other is chemotherapy, other is radiotherapy, right? Often for early disease, what we advise, we often do go for surgery, followed by, in some cases, radiotherapy. Otherwise, that is it. Later advanced stage 3 disease, we go for surgery, we need radiation as well as chemotherapy also. Stage 4 disease, largely palliative patient, we only advise chemotherapy. That is the treatment protocol, mostly what we follow. Regarding the morbidity associated with or the problem associated with these modalities, that is substantial, and this is the real problem why most of patient doesn't turn up for the complete treatment. That's a big problem. But now we have effective therapies, effective drugs also. They are taking care. We have good anti-emetic drugs. They take care of a vomiting part. We have good drugs, good injectable things actually to take care of neutropenia. So we have good drugs that is also working. And at the same time, we are really finding, we are actually having a good evidence which are showing that addition of yoga, at least yoga, that has shown to improve quality of life in those patients. So one is quality of life, second is morbidity, the problem itself. So we try to counsel them, psychological counseling, yogas, and treatments. That's what we do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Doctor, if I may ask, because I am not a doctor, so I can make a mistake and people will, and you will forgive me. As a common man, I have had experience of having seen a relative of mine go through homeopathy treatment as a post chemotherapy pain and other side effects, what Dr. Alifia mentioned, and he mentioned that yes, it works for him. So do you have evidence, or is this something which is just maybe in one or two cases?
Homeopathy, I'm not sure. We does have strong evidence. I'm not sure about that. I did not read much about that thing. But yes, any alternative therapy, I wish, at least yoga, we have actually evidences for that. Even during treatment also, after treatment also, we have yoga is probably the forerunner actually, and they have strong evidences also to reduce the suffering. So I'm not sure does homeopathy help or not. But if it is there, actually, it's really great thing. And we in fact advise everybody, after completion of treatment, we advise everybody to meet alternative care people also, so that they have their own ideas. They will keep patient busy in something, and they will give some positive. They are getting some treatment also. Patient comes to us and say, "Sir, give us some treatment." But we are done with the treatment. That is also there. So that part also taken care by those things. So really, we advise them. That's a useful thing. I'm not sure about homeopathy per se, how much it helps.
Okay. Do you have a yoga? When you say yoga, is there a protocol, or is there a set of possibilities for, or is it individualized?
We actually, what we do at our center, we have an Ayush center. Okay, where all the specialties are being practiced, but largely for yoga, we refer our patients to yoga sessions. Right? When our patient, I'm a surgeon, so when our patient comes to us, he remains with us for around 7 to 8 days. So during that particular period, we ask them to go to their sessions. There are usually 30 to 40 patient sessions will be there. So they will learn that particular exercise there. We give them tapes also, so that they can practice at home. That's what we try. And at the same time, we ask their resident to come and teach. Some patient may not able to go there, then we ask them really to come to our board. So that is the basic main thing what we are doing. And we are running a few trials also, in which we are we ask patient to come in follow-up also and go through some yoga lessons in between. So that we are that is an investigational thing, but not in a standard practice.
Okay. Yeah. I think there are a couple of questions. Naresh, would you like to?
Yeah. So this is one question. Even in fact, I had the same question Ms. Suman has asked it. This is to Dr. Punia. After cancer treatment for breast cancer is over. What is your advice? What is the probably I'll expand the question a little more. What is the possibilities of reoccurrence, and how do you avoid, and what all the specific yoga for that, or specific lifestyle suggestions? A lot of people I know of recovered from breast cancer, they're all associated with REACH. So this question is very important for me as well.
This is very important, sir, and actually it bring another arena which I haven't really discussed. One thing that we cannot be sure of, whom we can achieve the cure. That is one thing. Okay, even somebody is having early disease, he can get the disease back. Somebody who having a reasonably advanced disease, stage 3 disease, even those can be cured. So that is there. So we have 5 to 90% chance of getting cured. So who those 90% would be, who those 5% would be, and who will be remainder, we don't know. That is one thing. So we cannot really predict who will get the disease, first thing. Second thing, the chance of disease getting back or recurrence would be higher in early phase of the follow-up. So once treatment is over, like surgery done, chemotherapy done. May I continue? Yeah. So if surgery is done, chemotherapy treatment is over, then what we advise them? We advise them to come for regular follow-up, and initial follow-up for initial 2 years, we want them to come to us every 3 monthly, so that we will able to find out the disease early, if at all recurrence is there. That is another thing.
Another question, doctor, is CML yoga will help. I don't know what is CML yoga. Maybe you might be aware of it, doctor. Dr. Chandrasekhar asked this question. He can also elaborate.
I think he must be talking about disease, this, chronic myeloid leukemia. I think that he must be talking about that thing. So yoga related, if you talk about evidence, if you talk about evidence, I don't think so. We have strong evidence related to CML itself, that does it help or not. But the kind of effect of yoga on the body are substantial. It affects almost every organ. So we expect it will definitely going to help. And moreover, it will not going to harm. So that way, I think it is always advisable to go for yoga, for sure. Regarding the earlier question, I haven't really finished. If you allow me to complete. Shall I?
Yes, please, doctor. Sorry.
Okay. So first thing, actually, we cannot really predict. We cannot predict who will gonna get cure. First thing. Second thing, chance of recurrences would be higher during early phase of follow-up. As the time goes along, somebody, post treatment for 5 years, chance of recurrence will be lesser as compared to somebody who is a 2 year post treatment, right? So as the time goes on, we goes more toward cure and less toward recurrences. That is another thing. Third thing, recurrence will depend upon, we have certain we can try to predict, we cannot predict it. So somebody who is having a early disease, less chance of recurrence. Somebody is having advanced disease, higher chance of recurrence. So that way.
Dr. Harish Babu, you have any comment? You are raising your hands. Please go ahead.
Namaste, sir. I just wanted to add one thing regarding this question. In CML, will yoga help? So currently we are doing a specialized yoga session for the CML patients in our campus. So we have seen a very good improvement in quality of life, not in a cancer condition, but the signs and symptoms are very much reduced. That is what I wanted to tell. Regarding the cancer improvement, we are not sure. Still, it is going on, but we have seen a drastic improvement in the psychological state as well as in symptoms, reduction of the symptoms.
More of us. This is to Dr. Punia. Question from Suman. Please advise for blood cancer early stage also. I don't know what he's expecting. Maybe you can elaborate how to identify it and things like that, Doctor.
It's little I'm not sure what she really.
Yeah, it's a little open-ended question. So maybe if Suman wants to elaborate, he can unmute and explain it further. Mr. Suman.
Yeah, I can see the guest in the panel.
Probably, okay, let me try it. Okay, probably she's trying to find out what are the symptoms of early stage blood cancer. I think that is probably her thing. I think.
Yeah, you are unmuted. I think you can speak.
Yes. Okay. Am I audible? I'm audible, I guess.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the guest. Yeah.
Please ask your question.
I would like to know what help can be given to a person with blood cancer early stage.
Blood cancer early stage.
Basically, they don't have any treatment presently. It's only good diet and exercise.
I mean, I don't agree that statement that we don't have treatment. We have actually, blood cancer is a beautiful disease in a way. So mostly it's seen in younger children, and we have a very high chance of getting them cured.
I think it's called CLL.
Okay, CML. Okay. Sorry, I'm really sorry. It's working. Okay.
CLL, I think. CLL. Lymphocytic leukemia.
Please unmute Dr. Punia.
Sorry.
Yeah, please. Again.
It's CLL. Chronic lymphocytic leukemia.
No, I got it. I got it. Okay. The first thing, actually, disclaimer that I'm not a blood cancer expert. They are like specialized people. First thing, I'm only surgical oncologist. Second thing is that CML and CLL, these chronic leukemias are treated with some drugs. We don't achieve much of cure. Yes, one of my uncle also suffering from CML and he's taking medicine for that. So yeah, that's a chronic kind of disease. We have ability to keep the disease down, but we cannot cure them. That is like diabetes, hypertension. It goes like that, goes like this for a longer period. That is some chronic leukemias.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Maybe Dr. Harish is there. You were commenting on this particular ailment sometime back that you were running a program at SVIASA.
Sir, currently we are running on CML, sir.
Okay, not this particular one.
No, sir. We are. That is what I said. We have an integrated protocol, and what we have seen is a very much improvement in signs and symptoms, not in the disease condition. It is yet to be confirmed now, sir. But we have very good improvement in the quality of life. As sir said, it comes and goes. We are now doing a 2 years of follow-up, so we need to confirm again, sir.
Okay.
That's all, Anirban. We don't have any further questions.
Yes.
I just wanted to check with Dr. Jai Venkatesh, because he's from the Siddha background, whether Siddha has any experience of handling cancer treatment.
Jai Venkatesh, Dr. Jai Venkatesh has left the meeting just some time back. I can't see him in the meeting now.
Okay, okay.
Sir, I will get the answer. I will put this question to him privately and then get the answer and post it across.
Okay, that's fine.
So I think we are through, and we have recorded this session, and of course this will be there on our website by tomorrow. And yes, Dr. Punia.
Yeah, if you allow me, I just want to make a comment.
Yes, sir, please.
Every specialty has their own beauty, right?
Yeah.
Surgery have a definite role. Radiation has its own role. Chemotherapy has its own role. Similarly, Ayush. Everything has its own. The problem is that we need to identify the problem. That is the basic thing. We need to identify the problem. Then only we can reach to the proper care. And as Harish, I think Dr. Harish was telling, they are running a structured course. Such structured, I think yoga protocol he's doing. So such thing has to be there with other specialties also. Try to identify that what specific thing they want to achieve. At this particular point, what they can do, they can find out whether it improve the quality of life, whether it improve the symptomatology, whether it improve the treatment completion rate. If that is possible, that will be a great help for oncologist.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mr. Jai Venkatesh is there.
Yeah, Dr. Jai Venkatesh, you're there. Kindly, if you can unmute. There is a gap between J and EY in your name. So the search did not yield. That's the reason I missed out. Yeah. Dr. Jai Venkatesh?
Or he's...
So if all the questions are done, can we conclude? It's
Yes,
7
sir.
now.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Dr. Dharma Punia ji, for your precious time. As very well mentioned by Dr. Sushil Sharma, it was a great session of learning, and the topic is too vast, and of course it's a mixed group where doctors and people who are working in the field of integrated medicine and technical people who are interested in collaborating different pathies, it was an open discussion. I felt it was a very homely discussion rather. So it was nice to hear from everybody, and you're so good in receiving everybody. You are very receptive. So that's what I like in you, and your simplicity and making the topic so simple. The moment we hear the word cancer, it becomes so complex. So you made it so simple, and as you said, the important point here is first the diagnosis has to be made and the cause has to be found out. Depending on the cause, we treat. And you being a surgical oncologist, your expertization is, yes, I go and see if there is to be done some surgery, I do the surgery, then accordingly chemotherapy, radiation therapy, whatever allopathy medicine is there, that we have the evidences. Yes, of course, we totally agree with the scope of yoga for overall happiness of a person, whether he is a cancer patient, non-cancer patient, whether he is a patient or he doesn't have any health issues. Yoga definitely has a role in improving our quality of life. And when it comes to cancer patients, the quality of life becomes more important. Maybe he is going to survive for next 6 months, but how happily he can live those 6 months time. That's what is very important as healthcare providers, and that's what is my understanding. Yes, there is a definitive role of yoga, Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, and all the systems that are developed over the time to help any person who is suffering. So, and there is a definitive role of surgery where we find the cause, and there is a definitive role of radiation and chemotherapy. That was the take-home message, and we are so happy that you took out your precious time and very nice, prepared the PowerPoint presentations. Very easily we can follow. So thank you so much for your valuable time. And on behalf of Cerimed, now I hand over to Subrata ji and Anirvan for the closing note.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So, Dr. Punia, there is one comment from Dr. Jayavenkatesh based on what Dr. Subrata had asked. His mic is not working, so he has responded on the chat box. He says a lot of studies are going on AML and adenocarcinoma treatment. Along with, I think some people are unmuting. Cases are improvement in AML. So he could mention that. So I think one of the takeaways for me today is the possibilities of various pathies to work simultaneously. Because I took one of your points when you said that when you tell the patient that I do not have anything much to intervene now because my intervention is over, then there is a possibility of other pathy, like for example yoga and Ayurveda, to come, like what Dr. Harish kept saying, that he's into the palliative part of the whole treatment process. So these two can work definitely well together and create that holistic, approach of healing the patient, which is what Dr. Srinath mentions towards the end, that is all about healing, and the body has to heal itself. So any further last comments, and then we can close the meeting, sir? We are already crossing 7.
Hello.
Yeah, Dr. Srinath. Yes.
Hi, good evening. Actually, I'm driving. Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
you're audible.
Yeah, I'm audible. Yeah, thank you. Being an intensivist, I know what is now the gap between life and death. Okay. There is something what we treat, but we don't heal. So, very important part is the art of healing, where allopathy has a lacuna, where healing process, we cannot enhance the healing process, which is absolutely individual dependent. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, doctor. Yes.
Yeah. And probably that is a gap to be filled, because it's okay. Now preventive measures are there to not get the disease, but you cannot prevent disease happening, because this is a body. I think Sushil and Swamiji will agree. This is a body, this is an engine, this is a machine. So something is going to happen. It may be a small cut, it may be a fracture, it may be a tumor, it may be some kind of disease, whatever. So the most important is to live with this disease, this wound, and to recover from this wound, or from the surgery, or from the treatment, or chemotherapy, or antibiotics, or whatever, multi-organ failure. It's ultimately the host which has to respond, and the host response comes only when the host, the person's mind, body, and soul are in linear fashion, working together as a complementary to each other. If one of them, any one of them is leaving the gap, then probably the treatment failure happens, whatever treatment, whether you take Ayush treatment or allopath treatment. So I think holistic approach is to give a feeling of well-being. That's the most important. That definitely improves the survival, prolongs the survival, the quality of life. That is the most important part, what we are missing today in allopath practice. And that is my take.
Sir. Very true, sir. I think, yeah, Dr. Punia.
Just a comment. Nice comment, sir. Actually, I 100% I entirely agree with you. Just a thing, actually, how to integrate what pathy you practice, sir?
He's an allopath.
I'm an intensivist. I'm an allopath. I'm an intensivist. Yeah, okay. I'm critical care physician. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, how to integrate how to integrate Ayurveda with allopathy at this particular point? I mean, that is really that is not very well defined. That's the problem. That's why really.
Yeah. That's a gap. That's a gap. No, I don't say that. No, somewhere we have to mix the two pathis in one individual. But what I mean to say is that the approach, the holistic approach, is to bring the feeling of well-being in a patient, in a person, and to enhance the recovery. So that is the most important part, I think. Because you said there is one very important point, that there is role of more role of epigenetic than of genetics. So all these things is the environment which is surrounding us. So which is the cause of all these non-communicable diseases, even certain communicable diseases too. So this is the a gap which needs to be filled up.
Yeah, I think a good attempt. We will take this forward, Dr. Srinath, and perhaps we'll mention it in one of the go forward documents, or the the roadmap documents for CERIMED. As that we are working together, we will take some people together. If you are interested to come forward, please do let us know. We will create the platform, and we can have further dialogue and further action on the ground on this area, which is very, very interesting. And cancer being such a challenging ailment, as the whole word itself creates a lot of it encompasses mind. So that's what. So thank you, Dr. Srinath. Thank you, Dr. Punia. Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Dr. Punia, you wanted to say something?
Sir, I just request you, Sheshan sir, I request you, we would be happy. Hello, yes sir. We would be happy to do we will happy to integrate your pathy in our patient, whom we can feasibly can do. It's great if you can make some protocol, and then we can assess actually whether that is practically applicable or not. Then only we can generate the evidence, and then only on the public forum or global forum we can say something. Right? So probably it's really great actually if you can give us some protocol, and probably if sir can take a similar talk, that will be great. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Bye. Namaste.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you, Naresh. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Vikas. All the members of CERIMED team. We'll close for now. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Namaste. Good night.